Alrighty, everyone. Apparently, we're going to have Miss Mejia. She's teaching our class outside the room over here. Today, we're going to talk about web analytics. Oops, that's the assignment you need to do later on. Let's present. Alrighty, let's see how we're doing here. Here we are, web analytics. Woohoo! This is what we're going to cover today. You don't have to worry about this pair decks thing. We're not doing a pair deck. All right. The basics of web analytics, the DMMM. What is goal setting? What are KPIs? What are targets, segments, different vocabulary words we need to worry about, and how to use Google Analytics. The basics. So, things we want to measure with Google Analytics include who's coming to my website. It's important information to know. What are they doing? Or better, what are they trying to do? What is the gap between what they are doing and the ideal? So, what do we mean ideal for? Do we mean ideal for the business or the customer? Are we talking about what's good for us, what's good for customer? Maybe they're the same thing, hopefully, or they can be mutually beneficial. What are some concrete ways we can close the gap? So, if the customer is coming to our website and they're doing certain things, great, but maybe between what they want to achieve and what they actually achieve, there might be some difference there, right? And how can we close that gap? And also, is a customer doing what we want them to do, or is there some gap there? How can we, get them to take that next step so everyone is satisfied? And we're going to think about who are my ideal website visitors, personas. We talked about this previously, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. And lastly, how can we give more and get more from these people? How can we give and get more? Where do we start? You want to start doing your analysis, start your analytics at the very beginning of your website. So the all-important question, are you improving or not? So we want to measure with these analytics if we're improving our website's performance. You want to decide certain things up front. How are we going to measure if we're improving or not? What are we measuring? What indicates improvement or failure? You want to make sure your website goals are aligning with your organizational goals. So if you're some big company like Starbucks or something, you might have certain organizational goals aside from just making money. I mean, that's the main goal for every business, really. But how do you you might have other goals, different social goals, different maybe you want to reduce your carbon footprint, or maybe you want to promote certain social things or something like that. How does this website align with those? And then you have to you also have to think about getting buy-in from your organizational leadership. So if you're in some company and the big executives up in the in the penthouse or the top floors, how are you going to get them to go along with what you think is good for the website and good for the company as a whole, hopefully. So now I'm going to compare analytics and metrics. So metrics are the descriptive numbers. So we're talking about an actual like a whole number, like how many visitors came, right? How many leads did we get? Analytics is where we look at those numbers and we look at patterns and we see how are these useful? What can we do with this? So not just the numbers, but what do these numbers mean? So analytics are intangible. They can include insights. They're very strategic. You're doing a lot of asking questions and doing a lot of analyzing. I mean, analyzing and analytics, makes sense. Metrics, they're very tangible, whole numbers, right? It could be decimals too. Data, right? A lot of data involved. Transactional, so there's, purchases or, someone's giving something up or the other way around. Gathering data and reporting. These are all, aspects of metrics. And then on the other side over here, here we have analytics, and then over here, further on that way. I can't point. I need to mirror my screen. Anyways, over there. There you go. Way over there. Metrics. The digital marketing measurement model. You're going to hear this phrase a lot. the DMMM. It's a concept that was created by this guy, Avinash Kaushik, and he's one of the fathers of web analytics. This is one of his books, Web Analytics 2.0. So step one of your digital marketing measurement model is to force us to identify the business objectives up front and set the broadest parameters for work we are doing. So senior executives play a key role in this step. So when you're setting up your website, right, you want to think about what are the business objectives that I want to accomplish with this website. And then you talk to the bosses, and they say, what are you as a boss, you have, the whole company in mind. What kind of business objectives should I be pushing for? Step two is to identify crisp goals. Crisp goals, I like that phrase. For each business objective, executives lead the discussion. You'll play a contributing role. So you got your business objectives, and then you say, well, what kind of goals do we want to achieve for those objectives? Step three is to write down the key performance indicators. So how are we going to measure if our goals are being achieved or not? So a lot of times you'll work with a data person on that. So the data person will be the one who interprets all the different metrics or can find just the right metrics for you. So when you look at Google Analytics, there's all kinds of different metrics that you can look at. What do those metrics mean? How do you find the right metrics for you? And then how do you analyze it after that? Continuing our digital marketing measurement model. Step four, you're going to set the parameters for success, right? So your targets. I'm going to say, what do I need to achieve? So if I sold 5,000 widgets last month, is my target 6,000 widgets this month? Is it something less, something more? Finally, step five, all right? So I want to identify segments of people, behavior/outcomes that will analyze and understand why we succeed or fail. Right? So if you might, after you look at your targets, and then you're going to go ahead and see, you're going to kind of break that out into people. So maybe you were very successful, like a lot of people who have been to your website 10 times or more, right? Have purchased something. That could be one segment that you look at. Maybe you look at another segment where people who've been to your website for the very first time buy something, one out of 1,000 times. Right? So you can look at different segments and say, well, these are different areas that I can improve on. So things we want to focus on are acquisition. So where are we getting traffic from our website? Is it coming from organic search, branded search, that kind of stuff? Links from different blogs, social media, all kinds of stuff. Behavior. So what are the people doing once they arrive at your website? Are they sticking around for 5 seconds and then never coming back? Are they coming to your website, staying for an hour and watching a video and downloading something, then buying something? What are they doing? And then what outcomes signify value? So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be purchasing something. It could be, they download something, they sign up for a newsletter, or they sign up for an email blast, or whatever it is. These are different outcomes you might have, or maybe multiple outcomes you're looking for. So over here on the right-hand side, we'll see kind of like a little picture of how when you first start setting up your business objectives. Then there's going to be more stuff underneath it. We're going to complicate this as we go along. But if you take it step by step, it's not too bad. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is come up with some objectives. We got things like create awareness, generate leads, highlight events. So objectives should be dumb. They should be doable, understandable, manageable, and beneficial. If we set them a business objective, but we can't actually do it, what's the point, right? It has to be understandable. If you set up an objective and it's I kind of get what you're saying, but how would we do that? I don't know. What's the point? Manageable. So it's something that you can, if it's too all-encompassing, too complicated, then it's going to be, you're going to have a bad situation. And beneficial, of course, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is beneficial for your company. Clear objectives are key to successful measurement. So if your objective isn't clear, if it's obtuse, obscure, opaque, whatever you want to call it, how are you going to figure out if you did it or not? If your objective is, make people feel good. I mean, it's maybe possible to to achieve that, or but how are you going to measure it? It's kind of subjective, and or there might be very difficult to get that sort of data. So you want to keep it more concise and clear. Then after you've got your objectives, so again, we've got create awareness, generate leads, highlight events, and the sample one for Global World Domination Incorporated. Then you want to think about some goals. Right? So you're going to be a little bit more narrowly focused here. Goals are specific strategies you will leverage to accomplish objectives. So you want to reinforce offline/online advertising for creating awareness. We're talking about brand awareness potentially. Generating leads, right? We have capture leads via email slash contact. Provide home buyer info and resources. So I guess this company is a company where we're talking about potentially buying a home. Highlight events. You want to engage the community via local events. So these different, more specific things that we can do inside of our business objectives. And you'll notice that a generate leads has two goals. You might have, a business objective that only has one, maybe you have one that has four or more. You don't want to, be too broad. Because if you have too many goals, it can also, kind of spread you out too thin. All right, after you set up your goals, you're going to look at some KPIs, some key performance indicators. We've talked about these already, but let's talk about them a little bit more. Right? So you've got your goals, now you're going to measure it. You're going to measure it with some KPIs. So a KPI is a metric, so a number, essentially, that helps you understand how you're doing against your objectives. So KPI for here is branded traffic. How many times are people searching up for Global World Domination Incorporated? Conversions, how many times do people sign up for a newsletter? This is like a hard, fast number that you can look at. Number of downloads, how many times do people download these resources? Conversions, like how many people sign up for a home tour? Over here we have visitor loyalty, like how many people are return visitors. These are all things that we can measure as a solid number. And then after that, we're going to figure out, what does that mean? So using metrics as KPIs is lame. You want to go ahead. You want to go that next step, right? So this kind of stuff that just reports on the top of the funnel. You want to figure out how can I get people to move down that funnel, that conversion funnel that we talked about. Right? So a lot of stuff that you're talking about, just like a number. Right? That's fine. But you want to make sure, if you can make that next step, you want to have the super awesome. So here's like clicks. That's one. That's a metric. How many times people click on certain things. Loyalty, recency. These are a bit more accurate. These will give you more insight potentially into how your customer is behaving. So page views, conversion rate. So these are the lame versions over here. These are the super awesome ones over here. How many emails you sent. Again, these are all things that you can think, but if I sent like 1,000 emails, right, that's some way to measure like how many things, like how many people signed up for your email list, right? But in economic value from those emails, or that's going to give you more like how does it benefit me? This more, it gives me a little bit more of an idea of how my company is benefiting. So I can kind of get more of a sense of what's going on, if things are working or not. So we want to create KPIs that are awesome. We want to focus on longer-term relationships, focus on the customer experience, the interaction with the brand, the depth of travel down the funnel, and places the dollar value on conversions. So how much, what's the dollar value of someone performing some kind of conversion action? How can I, look at my bottom line and see my conversions increased, my profits increased, how do those things align? All right, we're gonna skip this, but let's just think about it for a second. So, identify a company from the following industries: the food and beverage, travel and hospitality, software, healthcare, retail, higher education. All right, so food and beverage like Coca-Cola, travel and hospitality, I don't know, like Trivago, software, Microsoft, healthcare, Montefiore, right? Retail, Uniqlo, higher education, NYU. Then what you would do is, we're going to do this later, but you're going to use design software to craft a DMMM, digital media marketing model for your company. Brainstorm and add 3 main business objectives. Create specific website goals for each. Identify or craft 1 KPI to measure success or failure towards. Right? And then I'll show you what an example one of this, kind of like what we're doing with the global world domination stuff. So you would come up with, pick a company, think about some business objectives they have, some goals, and some KPIs. All right, now we're going to look at targets. So targets are numerical values, like how many things, basically a metric that we want to achieve. So what does success look like? All right, for example, so you first have to figure out what your baseline is. Right? So if last month I had 7,000 or 6,000 visits, maybe this month I want to have 7,000 visits per month. If and so you always want to go up. You never want to go down as far, well, depending on the metric. Like bounce rate, you want that to go down. Like bounce rate, we'll get into that later, is, people go to your website for one page view and then they leave and they don't come back. That's your bounce rate. You would want to go down, usually. Or almost always. I can't think of a time when you want your bounce rate to increase. And you want to make sure you're using consistent intervals. So for your goals, like as long as you're consistent, like every month, this is how many users I get or how many conversions. So you want to keep that across all your different goals and your KPIs. You want to make sure that your targets are all the same as far as time-wise goes. After you get your targets down, like what numbers do you want to achieve, then you're going to look at some different segments, some different areas that might give you more insight as to how you're doing for that particular objective. So, for example, I have create awareness. They have traffic sources and converted visits. So, like, where's my traffic coming from? How many people go to my site and perform a conversion action? For generating leads, they have traffic sources again and site tools used. For home buyer info and resources, they have document type and geography, like where they're actually physically located. And over here for engaging community via local events, how many people have come to your website? Just 1 time, 2 times, 3 or more times? All right, so now we're done with the digital media marketing model. And what are we going to do now? Then from that, right, you're going to analyze all the information that you gleaned. Right? It gives you a nice big framework to provide valuable insight to leadership, so you can go to your bosses and say, all right, so this is some stuff we learned from our website, and then you can go ahead and you can make decisions based off of that data that you collected. And everyone can now know what success and failure looks like. So if you didn't achieve your goal, all right, obviously you failed. But maybe you made progress. Maybe you went the other way, right? But at least now you know where you're at. As far as if you don't know where you are, you don't know if you're succeeding or failing. You're just out there in the ocean, just wandering around aimlessly. All right, we're gonna get into some vocabulary. Key terms. So a session, a group of interactions that take place on your website within a given time frame. So it could be within an hour or whatever it is, but however long they're doing those things, that's their session. You can have multiple screen or page views, events, social interactions, and e-commerce transactions. So this is an example session. So they go to your website, they look at one screen, they look at another one, they do a couple things, they share something, and they buy something. Great. That's a very successful session. Sometimes your session looks like screen view 1. Most times, probably, you look at screen view 1, and then the session is over. That's normal. Sessions are expire after 30 minutes. So someone goes to a website, right, and then they go make their lunch, and they're gone for 30 minutes. That session is over. It also ends at midnight. So if someone goes to your website at 11:45 and they leave at 12:15, that's two 15-minute sessions, essentially. Even though it's they didn't leave your website for that half hour, but it counts as two different sessions as far as Google Analytics is concerned. So if a user arrives via one campaign, leaves, and then comes back via a different campaign, so that's a campaign change. So if they go to your website, they leave, and then they come back from from a YouTube video or something like that, or from a pay-per-click ad, then that counts as a different session. A page is a definable unit of content containing Google Analytics tracking code. And so, of course, you can have a page without Google Analytics tracking code, but as far as digital analytics is concerned, or web analytics, it's not a page unless Google Analytics tracking code is somewhere on that page. Page views, the number of time a page was loaded or reloaded. So if someone goes to a page and then they refresh it 100 times, that technically counts as 100 page views. A hit is any interaction that sends data to Google. So if someone clicks on a link or something like that, and that data gets sent to Google, that counts as a hit. If the data doesn't get sent to Google for whatever it is they did, then it doesn't matter. I mean, as far as web analytics is concerned. All right. The source/medium. So a source is where the traffic originated. Did it come from Facebook, Google, some other place? Right? The medium is the category of the source. Is it social? Is it organic? Is it branded? Right? That sort of thing. Unique visitors, the number of unduplicated visitors to interact with the website within a designated reporting period. So the main thing I want you to think about there is within a designated reporting period. So if someone's never been to your website before and they go to your website for the very first time, of course they're a unique visitor, right? But if you're measuring within like a week, right? If someone goes to your website one time and then a week later, or 2 weeks later, they go to your website again, that wasn't within that 1 week time frame. So the second time they're counted as a unique visitor, even though they've been to your website before. So it really depends on what area, what time frame you're measuring, if someone counts as a unique visitor or not. But say someone goes to your website, 2 times in a week, and you're looking at a week time frame, then the second time they don't count as a unique visitor. A new visitor is someone who's never been to your website before. So unique and new are different things. A lot of times they're the same. Right? Someone can be coming to your website for the first time. They would count both as unique and new. But if you've been to the website before, but just not within the time frame that you're looking at, then they're just unique. They're not new. Now, a returning visitor is someone who's been to your website before within that time frame that we're looking at. Again, it could be a month, it could be an hour, it could be whatever. Entry page is the first page of the session. A lot of times it's like the index.html page. A lot of times it isn't. So if I go to, for example, if I'm looking at CNET and I click on some link to Amazon about some technology doodad, it's going to take me straight to that Amazon page for that doodad, where it's not going to take me to Amazon.com, and then I have to go search for it. Whereas if I go to Amazon.com and type searching and start searching for it, that's different. So Amazon.com would be my entry page rather than the Amazon.com/whatever. Exit page is the last page you access during a session, signifying the end of a session. So whenever I close the browser or whenever my session ends, that's my exit page. Session duration, so the length of time in a session. Calculation is typically the timestamp of the last activity in the session minus the timestamp of the first activity of the session. So I go to your website, I spend a half an hour doing stuff, and then maybe there's a 10-minute time period where I don't do anything, and then I do some more stuff. Then I don't do things for a half an hour after that, and then I just close my browser. That last half hour doesn't count, but all the other kind of stuff does, even the 10 minutes where I didn't do anything. The refer is the page URL that originally generated the request for the current page viewer object. So who is sending me to this website, essentially? Essentially is like one of my favorite words, essentially. Probably say it too much. Could be an internal or an external. So for the example I used before was CNET right, sending me to another page on Amazon, that would be an external referral, because CNET and Amazon, different companies, so they're different websites. So that would be an external referral to the Amazon page. Whereas if I'm in Amazon, I'm clicking on links inside of Amazon, those would be internal referrals. A lot of talking, right? Some key terms. Keep going. Page views per session. So number of page views in a reporting period divided by the number of sessions in the same reporting period. So how many people? So how many times is a page being viewed within a certain time period? Single page view session. So this counts as someone going to your website, just going to one page, and then they don't do anything else, and then they leave. All right. They could stay on that one page for an hour, but if they don't go into any other pages within your website, it's a single page view session. Usually when we think about a bounce, someone goes to your website, they stay a few seconds, and then they leave. The bounce rate is the percentage of single page sessions. Again, generally speaking, you want to have someone go to your website and then, explore your website, so that way they're more likely to perform some kind of conversion action, whether that's, buying something or whatever it is. The more invested they are in staying on your website, the better off you are in most cases. Conversion is a completed desired activity on your website. All right, we've talked about this plenty of times. A dimension is a characteristic of a data point. So, what type of browser they're using, all right, where they're browsing from, right, what page we're talking about. That's the dimension of our data point. The metric is the value of a particular dimension, either a sum or a ratio. So it could be, for example, what percentage of my users are viewing my website in Google Chrome. What percentage of my users are, using my website in Safari. Those would be different metrics. The dimension would be what browser they're using. Events attract user action. So they click on something, they play a video, things like that. Those count as events. Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is a free service offered by Google that offers detailed website traffic stats. So I'll go more into how to sign up for it. I think we're going to use like a Google Analytics demo account, because I think it's to sign up for the Auto Orange one is going to be too much of a rigmarole to have to get around. Right. Utilizes page tags or trafficking code to measure traffic. It's both high-level and detailed stats, and integrated with AdWords and e-commerce systems. So Google Analytics is an excellent tool to figure out what kind of stuff is going on in our website, what kind of people are visiting our website, what are they doing when they get there. Oops, I didn't want to do that. All right, we'll skip this for right now because we're not going to use this file, I don't think. All right. So you're going to have to put in some, not you, but if you want to use Google Analytics, you have to put in some JavaScript into every page on your website that you want to be tracked. And so this will let Google Analytics access the data, all right, on your user interactions. It doesn't get data from the site, all right. So if someone types in their password or they type in some financial information, Google Analytics doesn't track that. What it does track is, what buttons they clicked on and what browser they're using and where and what their IP address is, where they're physically located and that kind of stuff. Not down to to what apartment they're in or anything like that, but what are they in New York? Are they in the Bronx? Whatever. It starts tracking from the time the tracking code is added. So once you put this JavaScript into that page, it gets tracked automatically by Google. It doesn't track historical information. Right? Other tools may, like Log Analyzer. So again, it doesn't track, like passwords and things like that. That tracked data gets sent to Google, but it's not instantaneous. It takes a little while for Google to take that data, analyze it, or process it, I should say, and then send that back for you to look at in the Google Analytics control panel. Let me see. Accounts, properties, and views. Install tracking code. A bit about Google Tag Manager. All right. So these are different things you'll have to worry about once you get into Google Analytics. And I'll do a separate video for that. All right. Default report types. Things that you can think about are: who are the people using my website? Where are they coming from? Behavior. What do they do? And did they perform some kind of conversion action? All right. We're going to get into this later, but let me show you a little bit. So I'm going to go to, over here. All right, so here I'm in the demo account for Google Analytics, and since I'm at school, I had to do it in private window, right? But you can take a look over here. We've got, I'm in the I can look at, look in the audience. I can look at all kind of users that I'm looking at. I can look at, I can customize. Let's go to home, all right? So over here we've got real time, audience. I can look at the audience, all right? I can see what type of behavior, what kind of technology these people are using, what kind of browser and OS are people using on this site over here. So most people are using Chrome, 75.76% of my users. New users, most of them, 73.43% are using. So this is all sessions. I can see exactly the bounce rate, 48.88%. For this particular site. All right, I can look at mobile, right, overview. So most of my users are coming from a desktop environment, but a decent part are coming from mobile, and a very small part are coming from tablets. So tablets are less and less popular these days. You even look at devices. iPhone, of course, is the most popular one. But there's iPad, Google Pixel 4L, Google Pixel 5. I'm surprised that these are all that high up. I guess as far as popularity goes. All right, acquisition. Where's your traffic coming from? Direct. So I click on that. I can get a little more information about that. So someone's typing in the web address directly, that kind of stuff. You can look at referrals, mail.googleplex.com, analytics.google.com. So these are people that are like, this is where I'm getting my my referrals from. Behavior, you can look at what they're doing. You can see what is the average exit page. A lot of times I leave from home, the home page, right? Maybe they these are different from the basket. Maybe they from the store. You can look at conversions, right? These are different goals. Looking for the model. No, I'm not. All right. So we can set up ahead of time. If we were actually in charge of this company. Different things that we could look at. What website were they at when they completed something, some kind of conversion action. Yourinfo.html, I'm assuming, is going to be like some kind of a website where they type in their address, their email address, and all that kind of stuff. So these are some different things that we can all look at as far as data goes that will help us out with getting some different insights into our company's whether or not they're achieving our business objectives or not. There's some insights over here. So we'll take a look about how to do that, get some more, how to actually use some of these tools in order to help us out with figuring out what Google Analytics can do for us. So I hope this helps you out with your notes. I will see you guys later.